Most people are not thinking about vibe coding correctly. They think you can prompt engineer your way into a production grade app. That's not true. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you how to do AI assisted engineering, building the harnesses, the context, the why, the what, and the how around your code base so that you can build incredible apps, work on production grade code bases, and actually get stuff done that doesn't get immediately rejected. Check it out. So the first thing I did is I took a bunch of screenshots of Chatbase, and this is kind of my source of truth because I want to make a clone of Chatbase for different verticals. So, but the first idea was for churches. So I said, go through all the I told Claude Code, go through all the screenshots here. I want to replicate Chatbase, except for churches and faith organizations, make it easy to set up a trained, protected, and tested AI system. I then also pasted in my setup structure that I like to use for different projects. So now it's created a spec and it's created different rules for itself, and it looked at all the chat base and it made user stories. Then I said, you chose a bad tech stack. First of all, it chose Next.js and Supabase, and it's not bad, but obviously Next.js is out. Next.js 14 is outdated, and I actually wanted to use Convex, and instead of GPT-4o, I wanted to use Open Router and scraping Firecrawl, Payment Stripe, UI, ShadCM. Okay, so I choose the tech stack. It's building the spec. And then I don't want to go over every single thing, but I'm asking, am I missing anything? What are we thinking about? I think I pasted the spec into GPT 5.2 Pro, and it gave, hey, here's some things you're missing. One big thing is that I was like, hey, use Assistant UI for the UI, use Vercel Workflow for long running tasks. So I'm very opinionated about the stack here. This is more like AI assisted engineering rather than pure vibe coding. Then we're talking about, the logging. Is it ClickHouse? Is it Sentry? Do we do Brain Trust or Langfuse or whatever? And I chose to do Brain Trust. Sentry does not have a free plan, by the way, which I figured out. And so we're just not going to do Sentry for right now. But and then Work OS for auth, replacing Convex, because I just wanted to be able to handle, more complex systems and enterprise scale. Classic, worry about enterprise when you get to 2 users. But I mean, I love WorkOS. It's super easy to set up, and it's much easier to, get started with it than to swap it in later, I think. I also had to paste in some documentation about Convex being able to do embedding and stream texting and stuff, or text streaming. And what else? Okay, so just as a recap, we have the source of truth, which is my prompt and those screenshots. We have, we're really iterating on the spec here. And what you see now here is that I'm talking about, let's make a testing plan for everything. And that's kind of going into the implementation, which is part of a planning, right? We have to plan how we're going to implement things, but the testing capability is I'm telling it to use Agent Browser. So there's that. Okay. So, and I really wanted to make sure that it knew what I was talking about when I was talking about Agent Browser, and it's, actually updating the spec with a test, with these types of checklists for each aspect. So for instance, let's take a look at phase 3, chat and playground. We have the RAG powered chat endpoint playground. So what it's going to do is it's going to curl these endpoints and make sure that it actually, everything's good. It's going to use the agent browser to open the playground, type a message, and see the streaming response, etc. So it's extremely practical. And then here I'm kind of pivoting more towards generic verticalization, like restaurants, real estate, etc. So let's update the spec with that, and let's see what else. Now I gave really specific instructions about guardrails and how to handle this type of stuff because I have an experienced opinion on that. And so I put something in the backlog, And then, okay, so here's an important step. I said to really get this thing cooking, I want to ensure every single aspect we mentioned, we have the most up-to-date docs in the repo before we start. Work OS, Open Router, AI SDK, AI Assistant, everything, Sentry, Brain Trust, etc. That way we can link the doc file to the item itself and make sure that we're using up-to-date docs. So that's the what. Now, of course, it doesn't really make sense to pull technical docs before you even know your stack and your spec. And so that's why, this is the golden circle with, Simon Sinek, but it doesn't always happen in that order, right? So it pulled a bunch of docs and then I made sure that our spec and our agent instructions knew about those documents. And then now we get into talking about implementation. And so I said, let's think hard about something here. In an effort to parallelize, what would we do first to unlock multiple streams of effort? And so it's like, well, of course we have to start by scaffolding everything, and then we make the database schema, and then now we can do a bunch of things in parallel. So that's really helpful. Update the spec with that. And so you see how once we have really good context, we can start talking about, okay, how are we going to pull this off? Well, we're going to parallelize it by doing it this way, and make sure that everything is we're testing everything. We have a plan for testing everything, and update our Claude to know where those documents are. So you can kind of see the relationship between these two things. So updated the kind of roadmap. One thing that I did is I looked at the user stories, and they're really, really garbage, actually. Oop, this accidentally scrolled me to the top, I think. So the user stories that it wrote were just garbage. They're really weird. It's just not really in scope for me right now. And so I didn't want that. I deleted a bunch of user stories, and then now we're ready to start. Little bit of pruning, a lot of context, a lot of implementation, opinions, and we're ready to get into it. So just to show you, at the end of all of that preparation, all that back and forth, I really have ended up with mostly a project spec, my Claude.md file, which is only 64 lines. It's not really complicated. And this template right here. So a template which shows it how to do stuff, the project spec which shows it everything it's going to build, my Claude rules, and then some organization here. And then of course all of the documentation that I collected, as well as my source of truth here in my reference. So hopefully that gives you a picture of when things are organized well, it's pretty simple. But if you let it get out of control, it can really, really spiral from there. So yeah, hopefully that helps. So there's a ton of different ways that we can start implementing this. A popular way right now is to use a Ralph loop with Claude Code. Other people might just go to Codex and see what would happen. So I'm going to make that a different video and just stop this right now. And I think this is a good enough thing that I can bookend it by saying, this is how I set up projects to go really, really well. Once I have a lot of context, sources of truth, I have my technical documentation, I have my spec for my project, I have a way of managing how I'm going to do things, instructions, guardrails, and I didn't even show you, I want to implement on commit hooks, right? Type checking and all that type of stuff so that AI kind of automatically lints itself. So hopefully this video has been helpful, and I'm going to put out another one on actually implementing this. So thanks.